It's my daughter's birthday and I got the lei. Aloha and welcome back to my channel. I'm Marilyn, sometimes Maya, the baby boomer booktuber. And today I'm going to do a tag. But first I wanted to show you my daughter's lei. Usually I wear leis, but not the real kind. They're kind of expensive, but she got a lei for her birthday. She does Zumba, and she went to do it outside, and her friends gave her a beautiful orchid lei. A lot of people think all Hawaiian blossoms have fragrance, but orchids are used a lot of times because they last longer. So this smell, it doesn't have a flowery essence to it. And this is called a butterfly lei. It's made with both parts of the orchid flower. And I think it's beautiful, but it doesn't have the fragrant blossoms that a lot of people associate with Hawaii. Today I'm going to do a tag created by the prolific Steve Donoghue, channel of the same name, which will be shown below. And I was tagged by Sean the Book Maniac. It's the Books and Life tag. And I really like this tag because I don't have to grab books from my bookcase. And I don't have as many books as many other booktubers have. But anyway, let's get on with it. So, number 1 is, on a scale of 1 to 10, being a normal person and 10 being the late Harold Bloom, how much are books and reading a part of your life? First, I had to look up Harold Bloom because I didn't know who he was. And I was kind of delighted to find out that he's a fellow New Yorker. And he was born only 20 years before I was. And he died last year, 2019. And he was an American literary critic known for his innovative interpretations of literary history and of the creation of literature. And it says that his first language was Yiddish, and he learned Yiddish and Hebrew before he learned English. And my grandmother only spoke Yiddish on my mother's side. So that was interesting to me. So that's Harold Bloom. Okay. And I'm not going to consider myself anywhere near Harold Bloom or Steve Donoghue, though books have been a huge part of my life, and never so more than lately. So maybe I'm a 7, depending on how you make the scale, because I also write, and I will get into that more later. Number 2, where does your personal library stand right now in relation to the rest of your life? Do you have more books now than you ever have? Fewer? How has your library changed? That's an interesting question. This is my whole library. When I started BookTube last August, I bought this especially for my BookTube channel. And I have more books now than I have in the last few years. But I don't want to keep that many books. So I already had an unhaul of my books. And if I get another bookcase, I will only get one more, and that will be it. But I'll get into that more later. Okay, how has my library changed? I've got rid of a lot of books because I moved a lot. I've moved from New York to Hawaii, from Hawaii to Minnesota, from Minnesota to Japan, from Japan back to Hawaii. So I had to get rid of a lot of books. And in a way, that's a pity because there's a few books that I want to get again. And as I go further on BookTube, I'm realizing that I missed some of the books that I read and gave away. Number 3, Take a mental step back and ask yourself, what is the most likely first bookish impression a newcomer would have in your house? I don't have many newcomers come to my house, and if they did, they wouldn't be coming in this way unless they went around the house and into the doors to the right. So they wouldn't have much of a bookish impression. They might get more of an impression of that I'm a writer because there's a lot of papers around, too many papers. So I don't think that I can answer that question in the way that others have, because I don't have many visitors. I live with my daughter and my partner and our 3 dogs. So I can't remember, except for my best friend, and she knows that I'm a bookworm. So yeah, I don't think I can answer that question properly. Number 4, how often, if ever, gulp, do you ever clean or reorganize your books? During the pandemic, I had to use the library when they opened, and I did clean the books that I got in. I sanitized them. I mean, people didn't know too much about how contagious the pandemic was at that time. And I do like, if I buy a used book, I do like to clean it off because I don't know who touched it. And especially my daughter is quite OCD. I mean, literally in the meaning of OCD. So yeah, she doesn't like to even read used books. I don't mind, but I do like to clean them. Reorganize? No, I'm not the type of librarian, say, who likes to organize the books by title or by genre. But I don't like them as sloppy as they are now. So maybe it's due since I'm on BookTube, it's due to be reorganized. 5, on average, how many books do you acquire in a given week? I don't buy books by the week. Books were not a part of my buying life. When I was young, we only borrowed books from the library. I mean, that's the only kind of reading that I got, except when I was very young. My mother bought little golden books because she wanted to teach me how to read at a very young age. But after that, it was all library books. And even now, I'm very particular. I'm on a very strict budget. So I would say maybe, since I've been on BookTube, I maybe buy 4 books a month, and that's a lot. But I'm buying more books than I ever have before. So that's the answer to that question. 6, what song is your current earworm? Music is a very important part of my life. It always has. I used to be a dancer. And whatever I'm hearing at the moment, my family watched Rent today. I had never seen the movie. I didn't even know it was a movie, but all the songs are in my ear right now, and it's really wonderful songs. Now, number 7, what percentage of your self-control do you retain in a well-stocked bookshop? I don't think I have. If you're talking about a new bookshop with the prices that books are right now, if I'm going to go to one, then I give myself at least a magazine to buy, or a book that I'm particularly want to buy and I saved up for. But in a used bookshop, I don't have self-control, and I don't want to have self-control, because that's the fun of going into a used bookshop. You just pick things out, and they're not usually too expensive. So I would say a lot of self-control and no self-control, depending on the kind of bookshop. Number 8, do you ever feel the need to take a break from books? If so, what form does it take? I think that in certain times of my life, I've had depression, or I've been anxious and not able to concentrate on reading. So in that case, I have taken a break from books, or I was too busy to read. I would, during some parts of my life when I was traveling and dancing and singing and doing a lot of other things, I would always have a book. So I would say that there were times that I read less, but reading has always been a part of my life. So that's the answer to that question. Number 9, when you meet a new person, how long does it take you to bring up books? Here's where I think that I'm different than other people. Most booktubers have said they never bring up books with new people. I meet new people going to the doctor, going to physical therapy, going here and there. And I have to say I always bring up books because most people know that I'm either on BookTube or that I'm a writer because I had one book that was published already. And I'm not well known at any stretch of the imagination, but people do think of me either as a writer or a reader. And I like that. I'm happy with that. Number 10, have you given any thoughts, made, or any provisions for your personal library when you croak? Oh, I don't plan to croak. Just kidding. So I have 4 children and a partner 20 years younger than me. So hopefully they will make a good decision about my books. And I don't have anything of value. So I hope that they'll either enjoy them or give them away. Number 11, I have a lot to say about this. Are you known among your friends and loved ones for your weird and probably unhealthy relationship with books? Yes. I have to say that ever since I was very young, I was known as a bookworm, carrying around books, especially where I was brought up and where I live now, where books are not of value. I'm not saying that I live near illiterate people, but right now I live with a lot of local Hawaiian people, and it's more of a storytelling or an oral nature of storytelling instead of reading books. Not that people don't read books, but exactly where I live, I have to say that I'm probably the only bookworm on my block for sure. And I lived here for like 40 years, so I do know all the people on my block. And in New York, maybe less so. My mother was a bookworm. And I have to say, my mother and father were opposites in that. My father almost had a disdain for reading, and he thought it was worthless. And my mother was a voracious reader. And when my mother was mentally ill and she had agoraphobia and she stayed home, my father was the one who brought her the books. He had to go to a library and bring her back books, and he really hated that. So, I'm very happy that my mother was a reader, or else maybe I wouldn't be a reader today. I don't know if this is true or not. But I also have another answer to this question. I don't know if you can have an unhealthy relationship with books. Either you're a reader or you're not a reader. And if you read a lot, that's what you do. You read a lot. But I wanted to end this with, and I hope you'll humor me, but I did write a memoir. I am in the process of writing a memoir. And one of the short chapters reminded me of this question. So I hope this is not a first draft, but it's not a final draft. So I want to read you a short chapter, and it's about my relationship with books when I was young. So here goes. I've always believed books provided answers to most of life's dilemmas. This was never truer than when I was 22 and grappling with an unhappy marriage, a toddler, and a newborn, my second child, Jason. The Thomas Cook European Rail Timetable was an international list of passenger rail schedules for every country in Europe. In a continuous publication from 1883 until August 2013, the word count during the 1970s varied between 400 to 500 pages. This guide was not light reading. I carried the hefty book against my chest wherever I went, and it became known as Marilyn's Bible. I was determined to study the intricacies of the 24-hour clock and capitals of countries I never knew existed. This was insanity. Or was it? Where you going, Marilyn? China or Timbuktu? No, man. China isn't in Europe. Sheesh. These Brooklynites gave me a headache, so unaware of the exciting world off our block. Marilyn, the weird librarian, a scrawny girl named Gina shouted at me. Get on a train for once. Go to Manhattan, I yelled back toward the wind. I was oblivious that they were mocking me. I was too busy studying how to get from Frankfurt to Geneva next Monday at exactly 1300. I didn't really want to go to Geneva, or not just to Geneva. My dream hinged on the Pan American Airways around the world trip priced at $999. There were two routes, either traveling eastbound or west. My favorite itinerary went east from New York to Europe through Karachi. I love that name. To Japan and Honolulu, where I would decide whether to continue traveling or lie on the beach forever. In a fever of expectation, I studied how to get a rail pass and use it to maximize each segment of my trip. I registered for classes at a community college in downtown Brooklyn just to get the International Student Identification Card that the $5 a day books to Europe by Fromer promised. This document was the key to traveling large on a minuscule budget. Rosa, a beauty from the projects, agreed to join me. At 20 and thrice married, she told me she was fake divorced. That means you're a bigamist, I said, but she didn't appear to care. We planned the details of our ball gowns. Hers would be white, mine black. We named ourselves Sugar and Spice and pretended to be lost Spanish princesses who had somehow landed in Brooklyn. We envisioned dancing the night away with bullfighters and flamenco dances. She enjoyed the fantasy of play acting, but I wasn't confident she intended to go. She was waiting for her personal injury lawsuit to be settled, while I frantically saved money by any legal means. She didn't have the discipline or obsession that drove one to a frenzy of planning and saving. I couldn't blame her, yet when she finally got her money and ran off to Puerto Rico with her sister without even telling me, it devastated me. My friend Carmen, who lived in Rosa's building, caught her sneaking into an illegal cab where she confessed she was flying out to the island. I doubted if my life as wife and mother was real. I walked around in a daze, planning and dreaming. I juggled my daily duties with forays to Manhattan, always searching for the life I knew I could have if I only found the right book. I spoke to my mirror like when I was 7 and communed with imaginary friends in the darkness of my abuela's television set. My mother had left to have a nervous breakdown, and I couldn't understand Spanish and later any other language. I learned that talking to a fictional pal named Dave soothed anxiety. Would it still work? Are we over the rainbow, Dorothy? Or I said. Despite being a stay-at-home mother with small children and a mostly absent husband, I had books, a vivid imagination, and my reflection in a full-length mirror. I later learned that I was in good company reading this weighty and detailed tome of Cook's. British novelist Malcolm Price listed the Thomas Cook European timetable as one of his favorite travel-related reads, and that it would appeal to those who are nostalgic for the romance of rail travel. I don't know if Mr. Price had mental health issues, but that book saved me from a fate I considered worse than death, living an uninspired life. There's a little more after that, but I think that ended on a good point about books. So I hope you enjoyed that. And if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. And thank you very much to Sean for tagging me on this wonderful tag of Steve Donoghue's. I really appreciate that. And until we meet again, my friends, aloha oi.